Excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Sara Adelman, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Liberty Wells Community Council. One thing I wanted to make you aware of before we get started today is we are trying something a little bit different. We mentioned this at our last meeting, but we are going to try live streaming these meetings as well as having the in-person event. We're hoping that this can help make the meetings more accessible to other folks in the community as well, and then give us an actual video recording that we can use in place of written minutes later. So you can actually go back and review any of the discussions that take place tonight. This is our first time, so we might hit some bugs and some troubleshooting, so just roll with us as we go through things. But we're hoping that it will be minimal interruption, that we can just proceed as normal. One quick thing for presenters who come up tonight, I will be passing a microphone to you when you come up, and if you can just state your name and who you're with when you come up to on the video.
Is the mic on now, Sarah?
Yes, it should be. Can you hear it okay?
It sounds like normal, but maybe it's in front.
You can hear it?
Yeah.
Excellent, that's great. One thing I will also want to get started is I'm going to pass around our little roll for the meeting tonight. There is a space to add your email if you're not getting alerts from us, but that's not obligatory. Just make sure that you put your name down. This helps us get a good count of how many
Call to order and a quorum. Everybody who's a officer, board member and officer, raise their hand. Okay, and I guess, you need to say your name for the record. So,
Bill, Shannon,
Wayne, Chris, DeWitt, Zach,
Aaron, Sarah,
anybody else we didn't get? Okay. Oh, John A. You're involved in this thing too, aren't you? No, I mean, are you watching?
I'm taking notes. Just
Oh, you're not watching the live stream. You're actually.
I'm just like back
It just okay. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Sarah already mentioned the meeting log. Okay. Review. Oh.
Quickly, we also passed a collection if you'd like to donate money or your thoughts on those forms. We'll pass it to Lenny and I get these things.
Okay. Yes, we're a self-sustaining organization. We exist on donations from the neighborhood and a little positive cash flow from some of the events that we put together. And that's Shannon, our treasurer, just in case.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I should have said, I'm not just a
Yeah. So, okay, thank you. All right, so board members, has everybody looked at the minutes for October? Yes. Are there any additions, corrections of any sort? Yes, Sarah.
Jay and I spoke about this already, but I just want to make sure that we add the board members' names to the minutes, just so we know who was here last.
Okay. Do we have those on the October minutes?
What changed there? Put Jeff Bear, it's Jeff Blair.
Jeff Blair.
It is
Bear.
Bear.
Was he
We're
here?
related, we're third cousins, so I can tell you it's Bear.
B-L-A-I-L.
B-A-I-R.
He's got Bear. Now Bear, the animal bear.
Oh, it's B-A-I-R. Okay, there you
or Bear Naked, one or the other. It's Bear. Was he here last time? Was I? Oh, did we just mention him? Because I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure I was here last month, and I don't remember seeing Jeff Bear. Oh, it must have been in the discussion. Yeah, I remember his name. I can't remember where it was mentioned. Yeah, George. Is that in the minutes that George wasn't here? No, never mind. Okay, so if there are no, okay.
Just petty, but the advertisements tossed out of the cars toward the end. The company doing that does it under the name Save Now, and I want them named and shapen in our minutes.
Okay. So we'll make that change. Anything else? Going once, going twice, going 3 times? Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes?
Motion to adopt the minutes?
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, we've adopted the minutes. Okay, next order of business. One of the things that we frequently do in this community council is highlight a local business located in the area. We haven't done one for a couple of months, actually. And call it a local business spotlight. So tonight we've invited Angela Canada, who's right there, to come and talk to us. Located, how long have you been in the Liberty?
4 years now.
4, okay, all right. Didn't think it was quite that long. Sorry it took us so long to spawn. In discussing that, it turns out that several board members actually visit Angela, including myself, so I can vouch for her. I'm not going to call it a light touch because you are a chiropractor. You're not a massage therapist. Yeah. So anyway, without further ado, I'll turn the time over to you, and so take a few minutes and introduce us. Talk about your business and yourself. Okay.
Come on up. You can hold it, or I can put it right here so you don't have to worry about it.
That's well, all right. Like Bill said, I'm Dr. Angie Canada. I own Canada Chiropractic. I'm just down the road on 6th East there, about 1473 South, 600 East, just on the corner of Roosevelt and 6th East. And I'm a chiropractor. I started out as a massage therapist, but realized that was going nowhere, and it was oversaturated. So I went back to school and got my undergrad at the U, and then went to Portland, Oregon, and got my chiropractic degree. And I've been a chiropractor for about the last 6 years, and last almost 4 years I've been over at that location. I bought the practice from Dr. John Bach 4 years ago, and just picked up where he left off. So as far as chiropractic is concerned, there's a couple different schools of thought of chiropractors. There's straight chiropractors, which come down from B.J. Palmer, who was the original guy that founded chiropractic about 100 years ago. He adjusted his friend's neck and brought back his hearing, is the rumor. I don't know if this is true, but there's a lot of chiropractors that will try to do multiple adjustments in order to realign the spine and clear up any pent-up energy that's in the spine and let the nerves communicate with each other. It's a good philosophy, but research doesn't really back that up. So I'm an evidence-based chiropractor, and so all my the things I do are based off of research. I work with both the muscles, the skeletal system and the muscle system in order so that you get better results and the results last longer. So it's pretty simple. I don't do long-term care plans or anything like that. When I'm not playing the chiropractor on TV, I dork out with my bagpipe band. I play drums in a bagpipe band, and we go around the western United States and compete in Highland Games. And it's a little known fact, the second largest bagpipe association in the world is here in Salt Lake City, and that's the Wasatch District Pipe Band, who I play with. And the only people that beat us is Simon Fraser University, and they're in British Columbia, Canada. But we'll get them one day. Aside from that, I also like to work in my community a lot. This year and last year, I volunteered at Project Homeless Connect, where I did adjustments on the participants at that location or event, I guess. Both times I did well over 100 adjustments on the people that attended that event, and it was a good little event. I also volunteer with the Special Olympics. I coach both golfing and bowling, and track and field in the summer. And it's a local club out of West Valley originally. So, but we have athletes from all over the city. And then I also am on the board of the Utah Chiropractic Physicians Association, and we're currently working on legislation to help with opioid addiction and how to properly prescribe opioids and how to hopefully keep people off of opioids in the first place by sending them to people like us for minor sprains and strains and mechanical issues. If you have a mechanical injury, it's better to treat it mechanically than chemically. And this is what we're trying to promote and get legislation passed with that. And so as part of that group, I'm on the, it's called Co-op. It's the Corporation for Opioid Prescription and Overdose Prevention. And it's a board of medical doctors, physical therapists, legislators, insurance panels, and behavioral health people. And we're all trying to come together to find a cohesive way of prescribing opioids properly and tapering people off of opioids in hopes that they don't turn to drugs like heroin or other things like that. So that's me in a nutshell. Any questions? Yeah?
What age of patients do you work on? And really what I'm asking is, do you treat children?
I treat infants and up. So I don't treat infants, but anybody older than an infant, yes, because I don't have kids myself, so I don't like to make babies cry. But after that, I'm fine. Any other questions?
When do you go from
So like toddler, so 2 and up. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
I can just vouch that Dr. Canada is amazing at what she does.
Why, thanks.
I've gone in there with some back pain and she took care of me. Enforcement.
Yay.
How are you with other chiropractors?
Well, I treat both of the muscles and skeletal side, so I don't just rack and crack, more or less. I also have shorter care plans, so most of my care plans are around like 4 to 5 visits instead of, upwards of 20. Sometimes you can get, some chiropractors keep you coming back quite a bit.
What kind of insurance do you have to carry?
As long as you have chiropractic care on your insurance, but I do carry malpractice, but like as far as like the cost of it, it's pretty low just because it's a pretty safe practice. So like for a 1 million, 3 million policy, it's only $1,000 a year. So like it's pretty affordable to be a chiropractor when it comes to malpractice anyway. But yeah, accept all the insurance companies that are out there. As long as there's chiropractic coverage on your plan, we take it. So, any other questions? Easy enough? All right. Thanks, guys.
Are you limping?
What?
Are you limping?
Yes. Yes, I am. It means that I'm actually going to be coming over soon. Although something you said actually is very interesting to me, that you're in this bagpipe band. Because we used to, for the British Field Day, the All British Choir Medicine, we actually used to have bagpipers.
Well, we can always get you more.
And it seemed like for a while it was pretty easy to talk people into like coming and volunteering, because at one point it was on a shoestring, and then people got tired of volunteering, and then they wanted to charge, and then we sort of, it's not that we can't pay, but we sort of dropped it and whatever. But we've been talking about it recently about adding that back in.
Yeah, I
So,
know if you.
sounds like you're the person.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, let's move to the next item. Public safety reports. It does not look like we have any firemen here. They're no doubt off fighting fires. So we will go to Salt Lake PD. which is I would like to welcome Detective David King, who is taking over for, God, what is his name? How quick you...
Andrew Peterson.
Andrew Peterson. I knew that. So I'll just introduce him as Detective David King, and we need to mic you.
Next time we won't use a lav mic.
All right. Well, hi, I'm Dave King with the Salt Lake Police Department. Just a little bit about me. I've been with Salt Lake. This January will be 12 years for me that I've been with Salt Lake. I've worked with Detective Peterson for a while in the CIU. I've been, this January would have been 3 years I would have been covering the downtown, so District 4. And so we had an officer leave our department, and so we just kind of had the opportunity to switch around and I guess kind of a little fresh perspective in some areas. And so I was able to come over and take over for him here in District 5, and I'm excited to come in and work with you guys. Just kind of looking around at some of the numbers that have been going on. It's nice because part one crimes across the city, like all the, I guess, some more violent crimes, it's all been down quite a bit. Some of the other part two were a little bit more of like the theft and the burglaries. The way that our numbers are looking, those crimes are also on a downward trend right now. I think a lot of it has to do with our great property squad, that they've been very proactive, and they've actually gone out and within the last couple of months they've actually caught some people that they think are pretty responsible for a lot of the crime that's been going on, and so they've been able to tie them up to a lot of that. And since those people were caught, that it appears that on our numbers that the crime is actually on a downward trend right now, which is great. Last week, what's that?
Was that two younger men?
It's been a while since I've seen it. I need to go back and double check, but I know that they had caught them, but I don't remember who they were. Last week, my squad, we were out with the properties crimes, and we were actually trying to do like a package theft. They might have seen something on, I can't remember if it was Fox 13 or something, but we had several packages scattered around the city and spent 2 days. I think that, if I remember right, I don't think that with any of the packages we stuck out, I don't think we had a lot of success with that, because a lot of times we'd put it out and people were so excited they kept peeking the windows trying to see if the package was still there, or we'd have a babysitter come over and see the package on the doorstep, pick it up and take it inside, and then we'd have to call and say, hey, get the package back out. But they did, because we were out, I think that they were, it was funny, we were out working the op, and then right as we called it, some of the guys that were out were able to catch some people trying to steal a package off of another porch that we weren't watching. So we did have a little bit of success there. So it's something we're constantly watching and monitoring and trying to see what different things we can do to try to help out. What questions do you guys have for me?
You're already a CIU officer, right?
Yes. I was up in District 4.
How long have you been a CIU?
3 years. I was District 4 for 3 years.
So I realize you've only been doing this a week or two. So how is District 5 different from District 4? I would think it would be not nearly as exciting.
Different type of excitement, I guess. Just it's interesting, like going to the maybe it's just, I don't know or what, but everybody has concerns, but it's different the way that different things are set up. Like I know with District 4, one of the big concerns was Topher Park over there off of 6th South and 3rd East, I think. So there's just just because of, I guess, a little bit more closer to some of the stuff that's going on over there. That was one of the concerns where I know you have parks here. You have Liberty Park and some other stuff, but our bike squads especially the East Side Bike Squad, I know hits that up a lot. So a little bit different. I mean, every area, just the way it's set up, they just have their own little tweaks in it.
Yeah, because I know this district with Operation Rio Grande, sort of dispersing the homeless impacted this district quite a bit. But I would assume that District 4 is still like the central business is still ground zero right now.
Yeah, I mean, with that displacement, I mean, it's something all over the city, going all the way down to Fairmount Park and even along the Jordan River Trail. And so they just started a West Side Bike Squad to kind of help out with some of the stuff that's going on over there too. So, yes, it's one of those ones where they're still wearing the people outfit. If it's a bad day, inclement weather, then they'll be in their cars out driving around, but they still are behind those tasks. So.
It just seems like that'd be really cool. Come January or so.
Yeah, so just lay it up, and then when they're not on the bikes, they're in their cars, and then I guess on those days they want to get a little crazy, they go out and ride, so.
Obviously, you can't be on a bike squad when it's
Yeah, so well, they still have the bike squad, they're just not on the bikes, and
So when I saw it on the news about the operator package, they said 2 days, I thought, that's ridiculous. You need to do it for throughout the holiday season, because 2 days would hardly put it in.
yeah. And I think it's one of those ones where I don't think it's going to be just that 2 days and they're going to stop. They're planning at different times, especially once it gets really close to the season. I know that's a lot that's going to step up.
Takes a lot of manpower probably too.
When we were doing it, we had our bike squad, we had the CIU squad, we had our vice and our narcs that were dressing down in plain clothes so they couldn't keep eyes. And I think we have people from like the AG's office kind of helping out. I think we had like 50 people out and about trying to watch to make sure that we had enough people, but to make sure that the stuff we were watching didn't disappear on us. But so.
Well, speaking of that, do you work with like UPS or FedEx? My understanding is people that are a lot of times stealing packages are actually following the UPS driver. So do you like give some packages to the UPS driver that they put out somewhere so that it looks like really realistic? Or do you just put packages out assuming that somebody else can buy it?
So I'm not sure I know that with packages that we did with these 2 days that they did get them from someone. I'm not sure who they were. I know that with my squad we've tried doing stuff like last year, and so we've wandering the area watching for that. So I know that we've tried it the last couple of years, and I know that this is something they're going to continue trying throughout the year until the holidays over with. So
how do you address the package? Because I was thinking you would probably want to do something like, instead of a real life name, you could put like Smile Your Enchanted Candy. Probably most of the people in this room don't even know it's candy. You know, so that the person that grabs the package and maybe they walk the block and look at it and kind of go, oh, shit.
yeah, I don't know.
Smile.
Yeah. So definitely something we're out in force trying to do.
For the camera's sake, Chris normally with the public safety committee, the last month, or maybe even longer, we do mobile watch, and we've been down to the Rio Grande area, we've been to the hotels. I have not seen it so vacant. That's the last month. I was wondering if it was something to do with the election, that you guys really stepped it up for the press so it would look good, but the whole time during Operation Rio Grande, it was still crowded in all these places, but the last month, it's really...
I think it's more the weather. I think
So, and we're not shipping people out on one-way bus tickets.
I know in the past that Provo has said that we've given people one-way tickets to Provo, and that's not true. I know that we have, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's the CCC, the Community Connection Center, that's across the street from the shelter. They have the social workers in there and the CIT officers. And so what they do is if they do give someone a bus ticket, it's because they have family that's waiting. They've verified that person has a place to go to. It's not like we just say, oh, we're tired of you, go to Vegas, it's warm. So, but they actually try to set stuff up to try to make it so they're successful when they leave here. They're not just shoving them off somewhere.
Personally, I think we should bus them to use that.
Do you talk, Ann? So, yeah.
Take your name.
No.
A couple of weeks ago, you caught about 20, 40 pounds of heroin. It was on the news because the chief put it on Twitter, but where was the bust? Was it in Liberty Wells? Was it in District 4, 5?
Can you repeat the question back just for the camera?
Oh,
Where was the heroin?
Oh, no.
there was the heroin bust. I'm trying to remember.
Put the king up.
I'm trying to remember, and I want to say it was in the downtown area, but I honestly don't remember. I know we've had a couple stuff come up, but that one I can't recall exactly. Any other thing?
What's your opinion of the new precinct?
It's I've seen. It's funny because even from us they've been keeping it pretty hush hush about where they want to put it. I've seen some plans for it, and I think that it could have some benefits. I know for a while when we were moving out, because when I was here when we were working out of the old public safety building when they were building the new one, and they had pushed all the patrol over to the west side, and so we were all for a while running out of that west side precinct to just put a ton of cops in the area. And I think that area is one that sees cops, but it kind of helps spread them out so that they're all just congregated at the west side or the downtown. So I think it could have some good benefits.
Can I argue that? No,
Yeah.
the reason it has to be in Sugar House is because it takes 17 minutes or more to go from Pioneer Precinct to here. And that's a big issue. So the chief was talking about how much time it takes, and that's why they want to spend money. Plus they have all those impact fees, and they don't know where else to spend it. It's police impact fees, and they have to spend it on it. They have to. The problem is property's too expensive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's going to be 21st and 21st or 11th East or 7th East, but they've been trying for 2-3 years now.
Yeah, I remember. I know that. I think when a long time ago, 10 years ago, when I was like 2-3 years on, that they've been talking about wanting that east side precinct to help out to kind of disperse and get that response over on that side. So I know it's been something they've talked about for a long time.
Why don't we just use the precinct they already got, that's down underneath that bit of Bath and Beyond, down underneath there?
Because they are, I'm thinking from what I remember about the plans is because that area, it's not really that big. There's a little room, there's a small little, not really a kitchen, it's just like a sink and then a bathroom. And so with this one, they're actually, I think, looking at putting office spaces in, maybe having east side detectives running out of it and giving office space to maybe like the east side sergeants, I would assume. So they're gonna have it. That space is there, but for I think what they're envisioning, it's just not big enough.
But what about the old fire station?
Fire station where at?
There in Sugar House,
Yeah, number 3.
by Carmel Park.
Oh, that one.
Council wants to use the property for affordable housing. Seriously.
Well, cops need to be affordable.
Yeah, but seriously, they've also talked about it for the police precinct.
Good.
So
They're pushing really hard on the precinct, but they just have a problem with finding property that's cheap.
And once the word gets out of the property they want, somebody buys it and jacks up the price. We had that happen with our park, we were building that 13th South and 3rd East on each corner of the park. And as soon as somebody found out we were gonna buy that, they bought it first. And then they tried to raise the price on our building council, so we didn't buy it, we ended up building the park somewhere else. That's why the city up to that.
it's interesting. I've wondered why that sat as a vacant lot for so long.
Yeah, that's for one of these.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. That's a while ago. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email Any questions, any concerns or whatever, let me know. It's the same email that Detective Peterson probably shared with you. It was the CIU District 5 at slcgov.com. And again, that's CIU District 5 at slcgov.com. And my phone number is 801-799-3624. And a lot of times I'm in and out of the office adjusting, so if I don't answer, leave a message and I will call you back. But feel free to contact me with any problems or concerns. We'll see what we can do to help out. All right.
Yes.
Or should I just take it?
Just go ahead.
We are going to interrupt the agenda briefly. Thank you, Detective. I appreciate your time. So one thing that didn't make it on the official agenda, just because the request came in a little bit too last minute for us to make it happen, Tom Millar with the Salt Lake City Transportation Division is currently working on a funding application to help extend the 9-line trail. Are any of you familiar with the 9-line trail in Salt Lake City? Brief overview for those of you who aren't. The vision for the trail overall would be an east-west recreational corridor that would link Immigration Canyon to Immigration Canyon on the east side to Surplus Canyon just west of 215. Various sections of the trail have already been built, particularly on the west side. The trail would be a protected trail apart from the road, and it's intended to do a couple of different things. It would give family access to recreation, so you could have families that could ride leisurely along the path on bikes, joggers for running, or just people walking their dogs and being out on the pathway. What's really unique about what this would mean for Liberty Wells is that I think all of us can agree that our community is pretty special for the fact that we have Liberty Park right here. We already have really great access to pathways and to recreation in the area. And we also have a lot of great businesses in our community that we can walk to on the weekends or after work or even just during the day. And we're also really lucky that we have a lot of business nodes around close by. So even outside of the Liberty Wells borders, we have 9th and 9th, we have the growing Central 9th District. There's a lot of growth for walking and just enjoying our community. And what this pathway would do is connect the communities along the 900 South pathway. So you could go from Central 9th to Liberty Park without ever touching the street. You could go over to the 9th and 9th area or just stop in Liberty Wells and enjoy the community here. The Salt Lake City, in 2019 is going to be building sections from 900 East up to 1300 East. You probably remember the pop-up intersection that was being tested out around 1100 East and 900 South. That was part of the studies that they were doing to extend the trail. And the Transportation Division is applying to the county for funding to connect the east and west sides with a pathway that would extend through Liberty Wells. There are a couple of different design options that they're currently looking at, and Tom was hoping to be able to come and present to us just to talk about it, but he had some conflicts tonight. He has committed to come and talk to our community council in the future as they are able to determine what the next steps would be and just kind of keep us in the loop as far as the process goes. But one thing that Tom did ask us for was just a general letter of support from the community council, just saying that this is something we'd be willing to consider and that we'd be interested in supporting the ask for funding and then be able to weigh in on what the design options would be as it moves forward. So what I was hoping to do tonight, in lieu of Tom being here, was just kind of take a straw poll of show of hands, people that would be interested in supporting that letter of support versus people that had some concerns. Anyone have any questions beforehand?
Where are we asking for the funds from?
From the county. And if I could pull up the exact division here. Hang on one second. From the Salt Lake County Transportation Choice Funds. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
How would it connect to Liberty Park without, any roadways?
Yeah, so they're going to use right-of-way on the roadways. What it would do is it would, depending on the design, there are three different design options that are being proposed. And I do have a packet that I can leave in the back for folks to just take a look at that shows, they did a pretty extensive study over the course of several years, and it shows what some of the design options would be. One of the options would be extending the on-road bike lanes on both the north and south side of the road. That's kind of the intermediary, just restriping. It would actually be the more expensive option. The option that the city is recommending instead, and would be slightly less expensive, is keeping the trail to just the south side of the road. It would be a two-way trail for both bicycles and pedestrians. It would be in a park strip, so it would be buffered from the road. There'd be landscaping, designed pathways or pavement and tile. So it would mean a lane reduction, but it would only impact the south side of 900 South, similar to what you see on the west side with the recreation trails there. Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
I'm totally confused why you do straw poles, because I incorporated with the Bishop people this Liberty Wells. Why are they doing straw poles instead of just voting for things? I don't understand that, because an affirmation is an affirmation. Yes, we are 100% behind this, we love it, or no, we do not want this. You know?
Well, this is still very much in the preliminary phases. At this point, we're not actually asking for any concrete action or concrete things moving forward. It would just be a sentiment of support for this ask for funding, and then it would mean a lot of other steps would need to happen in the process before it ever comes to action.
So is there a reason we couldn't have a 100% vote for a sentiment of support, or is there a reason that we, I mean, I don't understand that. Because in Robert's Rules of Order, I mean, it seems like we're not really going with the flow of, yes, we support this and we're backing it 100%, and no, we don't want to use the reasons why.
That's a good question.
Well, I can
I think what it is it's just an informal gauging of what the level of support is right now, because there's not a formal proposal. We're just trying to get like a general idea of how the community feels about it right now based on the information that's available. That's it.
So is that what the letter's going to say? We're just gauging a general support. The community
Yeah.
seems to be
It would basically say we discussed it. There's lots of questions or various questions. We took a straw poll. It appeared that the majority of people were in favor of it. That's it. Or not.
Because usually it's like you get 30 days to review some of this stuff and then you vote, and that's why it's this.
Well, at some point, they will have a formal open house, no doubt, for this, where you can come. They'll have concrete proposals. You can actually talk to planners. They're going to record all of your comments and all of that sort of thing.
They have
But
had,
this is very preliminary.
and they have had the master plan and the study that is informing this request for funding has been around, it's been out for at least a year, and there have been various calls for feedback and input over the course of that year.
Okay, so when they come back with a formal plan, then we have opportunity to review it at that time.
Correct.
So then we can say yea or nay.
Yeah.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can those be found online somewhere, the plans, or is it just in the packet?
Yes, no, not just in the packet. Let me pull up the URLs because there's a couple different options for where to find it.
Just Google 9-line trail extension study.
Yep, and it's 9
megabyte file.
9-line. You can also go to bikeslc.com and write in all their listings of trails. They do include the 9-line in there, and they have several different links to details there. But that's great. If you Google 9-line trail SLC, it'll come up. Cool. Any other comments or questions?
Do we have an estimated amount, or is that not talked about yet?
So what they would be asking for the county, and this would be over a 3-year phase of extended community feedback and then also eventually construction. They estimate that it would be between $5 and $6 million, and that would be from 600 west through 900 east. So it would be the majority of the remaining part of the trail. It should finish the project. Cool. Could I get a show of hands of all those in favor? Excellent. And any against or still have concerns? Excellent. Great. Thanks, everyone. It looks like the ayes have it for now. We'll keep you updated, and I know that Tom was interested in coming and presenting at a future meeting, so stay tuned for that. Thanks.
Actually, I'm not going to clip it on myself. Okay. The one thing I was going to mention about the police officer, David King, is that if anybody has anything that they want to discuss privately with him, that's why they usually wait for a little while, that you can meet him in the back of the room or whatever. Not everything you want to discuss in front of 30 people or whatever. So. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the mayor's office update with Tim Cosgrove. And here you have to clip this on your side.
If you hang on to that. PR treatment.
Can you hear me? Hear me, Zach?
It's not an amplification, it's just for the live streaming.
All right. Thank you. I'm Tim Cosgrove from the mayor's office. I appreciate you having me here this evening. I want to give a shout out to Detective King also. I work with him closely. We work on a community action team together. It's a multi-jurisdictional team made up of civil enforcement, Salt Lake County Health Department, our adult aging services, mayor's office, law enforcement. But we work together to tackle the tough issues within our city, and he's great at follow through like nobody else. So he's good to have here in our community. With that, there's an update I wanted to share. So we had talked about the 50 new police officers being hired for the city. 20 of them came online this week. They began this week. We'll get another 13 in mid-December and another 18 in mid-April. But the 20 that were just out of the police academy finished their training and are out in the field. So that's good news. Also, yes.
So how many police officers are we down?
Well, there's a total of just over 400
So we're down
citywide. Well, I mean,
We're supposed to have 440.
it depends on how many you. I mean, we can hire and keep hiring and keep hiring,
Yeah,
but
and you lose 3 a month.
yeah. So the number for attrition is 20 at any given time. So if that answers
So
the
we're
question.
even.
Yeah, we're probably even.
But thanks for trying.
We keep working at it. We keep adding.
You are, and thank you.
Yeah, it's not a quick process, but they.
Well, a related question.
Yeah.
Part of the problem why there is so much turnover in the Salt Lake PD is the pay level and the benefit level is significantly less than some surrounding municipalities. So it's not that police officers are leaving policing or they're retiring, they're moving to different jurisdictions.
That was part of the issue.
But I know at one point, like, city council was discussing increasing
Yeah,
the pay and benefit package for the police department.
the mayor.
Where is that at?
The mayor and the city council increased it by $5 an hour to stay competitive with the surrounding agencies.
When did that come into effect?
That was at the last budget.
So in June.
Yeah.
What do they do with benefits? Because I thought benefits was a big, huge factor.
And where's Zach, Bartholomew, Sara Adelman? I mean, one thing that gives me a tickle about coming to the community councils, every community council is a little bit different. You may have remembered Zach and Sara working on the homeless subcommittee last year, and Dita, Seed, there was a few others. And one of the items, the issues that they proposed was having a resource guide. And we had developed this resource guide, the Good Neighbor Guide, and that was with Sara and Zach. And I'm just giving them a shout out because they were the engine that helped drive this. But this is a good resource for your community. We use them in all the community councils. It's not exhaustive. I mean, there's probably still some questions that you could ask that aren't covered in here, but it's a very good resource. You've already heard Detective King refer to a couple of them: the Community Connection Center, the host homeless outreach services team that's in here. So I encourage you to take one of these. And then with that, November 28th at the Liberty Senior Citizen Center, so Wednesday from 6 to 8, there is an open house on the Homeless Resource Center that's opening up at 131 East, 7th South. It's at Liberty Senior Citizen Center. It's an open house from 6 to 8. So this is a little bit...
Again, sorry.
November 28th, Wednesday. There will be one November 29th, Thursday, at the Ballpark Community Council at Taylor Springs at 1812 West Temple, 1812 South West Temple at Taylor Springs on the 242 West Paramount Avenue Homeless Resource Center. So you're welcome to attend both, either one or the other. But this is really your opportunity to share with the design team, Shelter the Homeless that has the contract from the state to operate the homeless resource centers. Transportation will be there, public utilities will be there. This is really your opportunity to share what you'd like to see your community look like. And so I encourage you to attend that from 6 to 8. Yes?
Because I was going to ask, so what is, if the open house is about the homeless resource center?
It's about the community surrounding the homeless resource centers.
Because I was going to go, like, what is the point? Because they're already designed.
Right.
They already know where they're going.
So it's what you foresee for the future of your community, what you'd like it to be, what you'd like to see.
Like the impacts and mitigation and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like lighting, like walkability, the life.
I mean, in general, or specifically how it relates to a homeless resource center?
Well, the homeless resource centers are scheduled to open June 1st. They're actually ahead of schedule. I've heard maybe as early as a month ahead of schedule. So in preparation, the programming that will be going on, Shelter the Homeless operates that. The persons experiencing homelessness will be assigned a caseworker. They'll look at their individual challenge issues and be assigned 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to address that issue. But what is it that you, as the community, would like to see around the neighborhood?
Have they specifically allocated funding for that?
There's some...
Because nothing happens without funding.
Yeah, there's some funding allocated. VODA is the consulting firm putting together a strategic plan for each community in that surrounding area. Yeah.
How much?
That I couldn't tell you. You'd have to ask that at the open house.
And where is this open house, what time again?
So the one on Wednesday, November 28th, is at Liberty Senior Citizen Center from 6 to 8. And they'll be specifically looking at the homeless resource center that's being built, the 200-bed shelter for women at 131 East 7th South.
That's by Tolfer Park in the Liberty.
Correct. Right across the street. And the one on November 29th, Thursday, will be at Ballpark Community Council's,
It's not at the community.
or Ballpark's community room,
No, it's at
the Taylor Springs.
Community Room.
Right.
It's not a Ballpark Community Council meeting.
Taylor Springs Community Room, 1812 South West Temple. and they'll be talking about the Homeless Resource Center at 242 West Paramount Avenue. And that one's a co-ed Homeless Resource Center for 200-bed shelter.
That's the 29th?
That's the 29th.
What time?
6 to 8. Any other questions? Yes, Tamara.
Well, I used to work at the YWCA, the Women in Jeopardy program. I was a shelter advocate. I was there for 4 years. And we had a campus of 5 buildings. And it was really nice to have a partnership with the neighbors because they were aware of what was going on. If they had any issues, they could contact us. And also if a child, and I don't know if there'll be any children at the women's shelter here or not, it's just women.
Just women, yeah,
But
children.
if somebody, got lost or had a problem, we'd know where to, people would know to contact us and we'd know, we'd know the faces. And I did talk to the guy there's a guy next door that has a business and he's really worried about his business.
Which location? Which?
I don't know if I want to say it on camera,
Oh.
but I will tell you to afterwards because he's really nervous that it's going to impact him as his business. Yeah.
Well, that's what I think the open house is for,
Right.
and an opportunity to share what the businesses and the citizens surrounding the community would like it to be.
But ours was built in such a way that there were lights, there were gates, there were there were cameras. So we had 164 cameras. So it was very difficult to not be aware of something because the way you set up security systems now digitally, you can see so many things. So we have a pretty good success rate.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Zach.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm just looking around.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
I was just going to ask you, since we're talking about ballpark, if I followed up on what I was telling you about, can I just make a quick announcement related to the city?
Sure.
Thank you. So what we've been working on is, do you mind holding this, Tim? Because I need hands and you're here to my mic. So, thank you.
I think you need the mic. Do you need the mic?
Oh, okay, thanks.
So, can you announce yourself?
My name's Tamara Wharton, and I'm a longtime community person here. Wherever I've lived in Salt Lake, it's always been in Liberty Wells. I love Liberty Wells. It's my home for like 30 years, whatever, something like that. But so Ballpark and Liberty Wells are right next door. Y'all know where Ballpark is? You're chair of both of them, right? Are you chair of both, or?
I am no longer chair of Ballpark, but I'm still on the board.
Okay, so because you live in Liberty Wells, but you have some affiliation there. Yeah, and I do too. I mean, I used to have a bit, well, it was a shop. I'll call it a shop in Ballpark, and then I live here. But I feel like something really exciting is happening that you might be interested in. I've also been a lifelong student, and can you hold it because I have something to show? Can you just lift it up? I'm going to add this to it. So I've been working with Salt Lake Community College. I'm an eternal student. I'm a film student there. I've been a volunteer with Sundance. I have been a journalist for Sundance and for the Globe of Salt Lake Community College. And we've talked for a long time about really building the Center for Arts and Media there. And I don't know if you've been there. We have all sorts of incredible museums and art and the Grand Theater. So in our meetings, we've talked about this proposal to have an overlay arts village that would fit within the Ballpark and Liberty Wells, and it's part of things are changing and expanding, and we have so many students there, and we're talking about safety, but being positive is really what we want to do. And I don't know how many of you are artists, but just on my block, we have so many artists. I can tell you that we have Paul Anderson, we had Alice Bailey here. We have so many incredible artists that we'd love to feature. So this is our dream. And we met with the college, and we came up with a list from the alumni of South High to the state college to the community council to everyone around here that we can partner with. So I just wanted to let you know about this because we're so excited. And I think if we have positive things that our youth can get involved with and that we can feel excited about in our community and we get closer as a community by connecting with each other,
then we're going to be able to make our community safer and lift it up. So it's for the betterment of our community, and we'll still be part of these community councils. So I just wanted to announce this. I'm so excited. We've already incorporated, and it's a nonprofit. It's called South City Arts Village, so we're Village, and the initials are doing business as SCAV, and I'm like, that's a terrible name, but we'll get used to it. Or maybe it sounds like scavenging, like we're going to go out and collect things and recycle them and make art with them. Anyway, thank you. Thanks.
Sorry for ears at home.
I know all, sorry.
You got dragged on the
I
ground.
know all about lavaliers, but I.
We've lost the money.
There you go. You're next, Brianna.
We need a wireless one.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, boom mic. Okay, next thing on the agenda is we had a request from some residents to talk a little bit about a problem property, long-time problem property in the area, the Roseanne Apartments. So we...
The what apartment, can you say it again? I didn't hear you.
the Roseanne Apartments.
Roseanne?
Roseanne. 204 Browning Avenue, right? Yeah, anyway, some talk about that, and so we said, okay, fine, and it's a good night to do it since we don't have a full agenda, and we've got plenty of time. So I would like to open that up. A couple of ground rules, like I'm not really leading the discussion necessarily. I'll say I'm moderating. How's that sound? Who brought this up is Andy Echel. Echel, is that? Or whatever, and it turns out that there may be more than one, but the Housing Authority actually does is involved in the process, but one of the things that they do is when, a social service agency uses the housing authority to place people, that what the housing authority does is basically run a criminal check on the person and turns that information over to the landlord. And it's actually the decision of the landlord of whether to rent to this person or not. It's not, the housing authority cannot force a landlord to take a tenant. And so to me, it's coming back to the issue is the landlord, not necessarily agencies that are referring people to them, because the landlord can have his own standards and say, no, I don't want that person as a tenant, okay? So,
I think if you do that too often, though, you're not going to get very many more referrals from those agencies. And that's free money, basically.
well, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, it is, but, and again, I don't know, like, I don't think there was a long email chain going on between myself and I think George was involved. Right. But to me, it's like this landlord, I can't pronounce his name, I'll leave that up to you, that, yes, that people get, funding, allocations to, rent assistance. But this landlord, he's been beaten up by his tenants, supposedly. His units are destroyed, and he's got to fix them, and the police come, and they smash the doors down. And the police, if they smash your door down, they don't come back and fix your door. You get to fix the door yourself. And so, yes, even though you're getting people that are renting and they're rent subsidized, that there's a whole bunch of other costs involved in that may not make it worth it. Which it comes back to, like, why would you rent a slum? But that's just me. So the one thing we don't have a too terribly big crowd about this, but the one thing I wanted to do some ground rules is to, if somebody wants to comment on this, to maybe stand up and identify themselves and ask the question, maybe come up and talk, and as opposed to, because remember the last time we talked about this, I think it sort of got out of hand where a whole lot of people showed up with a whole lot of energy, and it ended up people just shouting questions from the audience, and it just sort of descended into chaos. So I was trying to make sure that it's a little more productive than that. So
To the aim of making it more productive, what are the possibilities? Like, what could we possibly do? Like, what is listening going to do, I guess?
Well, I think to me it comes down to what is the role, or one of the roles of a community council. Okay, and and I have this talk occasionally with maybe new people coming in because I think it's managing expectations. And to me, it's the idea that you have to understand the community council has no power. Okay, we cannot force anybody to do anything. We can't keep anybody from doing something that is like totally legal to do. But what we do have is we have influence. Okay, and there's a difference between power and influence. And if all you have is influence and you act like you have power, that generally doesn't work very well. Okay, and what we have as community council is we have influence. And what I say, what we can do is we can amplify the concerns of the residents. Okay, so there's an issue over at the Roseanne Apartments. It's impacting, I don't know, I'll call it a square block area directly, but it really doesn't impact anybody living over on 7th East particularly directly. But it doesn't matter because as a community council, we're concerned about the entire neighborhood, and we're going to lend our voice to amplify the concerns to see if we can. I can't touch myself. And actually, I just got hooked onto myself. I was going to say, so I don't know, Andy, did you want to get up and talk about it a little bit? Okay. I'll turn the time over to Andy because I guess you live right across the street. And okay, so we're going to hook you up to this. Maybe
Unfortunately, it's just for the benefit of people at home. So thank you.
And maybe reintroduce yourself to your name.
Yeah, thanks.
If people ask questions, if you can, if it's not super loud, if you can repeat that question so we can catch it online.
Sure. So anyway, yeah, so the apartments that we're talking about have been a problem for a very long time, since basically the mid-1970s. And it's gone on during the 1990s. Things got really bad, and the police did a number of drug raids at this place. And on one occasion, they ended up arresting people from almost every unit of this apartment. I think there were like 7 or 8 different police agents. I think Mayor Didi Corradini, I believe she was the mayor, if I remember right. Anyway, her office told the landlord that if there were any more problems from that building, that he would end up losing his property. That never happened. The problems have continued ever. So anyway, in recent times, there's been just a whole lot of stuff going on there, like bike chopping and tool hawking and drug distribution, appliance fencing. There was one guy running an illegal moped shop. I think the mopeds were probably all stolen. And he would take them in, tear them apart, put them back together, different parts from this one with that one, sort of a thing. And anyway, it was an illegal operation to begin with, because he was actually running it as a business. Then he would turn around and sell them. So we had that going on. There's been a lot of problems with fighting, assaults, excessive noise, threats, harassment, what I call over-tenanting, I guess, for lack of a better word, where, for example, the county would be, or the city would be paying a voucher for one person to live in a unit. And there might be 20 people living in that unit. These people the problem with this place is that it's kind of a magnet. And it's not just the fact that most of the people who live there are criminals, but they bring in other people who are also criminals. And boy, I tell you, last year, the summer of 2017, some of my neighbors and I refer to that as the summer of hell, because just a lot of the folks from Rio Grande were kind of channeled into our area, and they took over that building. They took over several other apartments in the area as well. and there was garbage all over the place. There was drug dealing every day, day and night. People bringing in drugs in shopping carts, selling it right from their little vending service right out of the shopping carts and whatnot. There were people that hauled in furniture from all over the place, and it was just scattered all over the property, and they were sleeping on it at nights. They first started sleeping, yeah.
And each one of these crimes that you have mentioned, the police have been called and verified that this has been going on, the bike chop shop?
Yeah, bike chop shops have been a real big problem there. At any given time, there might be 3 or 4 units where bike chopping was going on. And we would call the police, we would provide information to the police department, we would send pictures of people doing the chopping, send that in to our CIU officer, and never once did anything get done about it because, and there were a couple of occasions where police were called to the apartment for other reasons other than the bike chop shops, but after they were done, I would go over and I would talk to the police officers that were on site and kind of mention, you see those bikes over there and these here and that whatnot, they're all stolen bicycles. And it was, a couple of people on one occasion that were actually ripping bikes apart while the officers were there. Mentioned it to the officers, could you just go talk to them, take the serial numbers, would you please check and see if those serial numbers are listed, as stolen property. I guess they had a problem with doing that. The officer said they really couldn't do it because of they had some legal reasons, but.
And 2 months ago when we were here in this meeting, the officer told us that night the SWAT team was there at those apartments at the door and that they hauled them in. And that was when, I guess, he was selling spice or something.
Oh, okay, this was a separate occasion. Okay, this was around September, I think, 10th or 8th or something. This year there was a SWAT raid at that apartment, and
I was really happy that this was done. And I said, well, we'll see how long he stays in jail. And he was like out 3 days later, and he's back.
Now, did you say that there were actually bike parts and things in that apartment?
I don't know. It's just that
See, I'm hearing some rumors that maybe the officers found a bunch of stolen bikes in the apartment, and there was a problem. They couldn't do anything about it because they couldn't be proven to be stolen property. What I know about this particular apartment, it was Unit 9, and the man that lives there has been involved in all sorts of drug trafficking, but mostly bike chopping and other illegal activities. At one time, I was actually in his apartment. I counted like 16 bicycles. In his apartment at that moment. These were all stolen property. A while back, he used to come over to our home and he used to borrow our ladder because I don't know why, what he needed it for. He just told my dad he needed my dad to loan it to him. And after a while, I got real curious what he was using it for. So one day, I followed him around to the backside of his apartments, and I found that he was using that ladder to climb up on a carport where he would store some of the stolen bicycles. He couldn't fit them all in his apartment. And so, anyway, I told him from that point on, I said, you'll never borrow our ladder again. I said, that's stolen property and you can't use it for, conducting your business. He would borrow tools from me from time to time. And then I found out later that he was using those tools for his bike chopping. So I told him he couldn't do that anymore. Well, he got kind of ticked off at me, for telling him that he couldn't borrow our stuff anymore. And so anyway, that got him upset to begin with. Then over time, he was involved in other illegal activities. I fed that information to the police department along with some of our other neighbors. And anyway, he ended up being arrested back in September then, and I guess they arrested him on drug charges. He was out of jail within like 24 hours or something. He was back home the next day. And since then, he's tried everything he can to make my life a living hell because he knows that, I fed some information to the police that caused that arrest. And so I've been getting a lot of harassment ever since that time. He's also, pretty upset with me because a police camera showed up on the corner next to this property. And they had the cameras pointed so that it would, they could look at what was going on at this apartment. And he blames me for that camera being there. Well, that's justified. I had something to do with it. But anyway, he got real ticked off at me one day about the camera, and then he got ticked off that the police were down on the corner doing it was a kind of a traffic enforcement thing, radar trap, I guess. Anyway, he thought that I was responsible for them being there, and so anyway, he was screaming at me and just having a real fit and whatnot. And I took a walk down to the corner to talk to the police about it and see if they couldn't do something, maybe even arrest him for harassment and whatnot. And they said they couldn't do anything at that time because, he hadn't been threatening me specifically. The threats had to be very specific, direct, that sort of thing. They also told me at that time that that they had noticed him yelling at some other individual just prior to my coming to talk to them, I guess. So they had witnessed this harassment, but seemed to not be able to do anything about it. It's gotten so bad that I had to file a report with the police department about a couple weeks ago, I guess, and for harassment. And I'm just kind of waiting to see if it gets worse or better or whatnot. But yeah, I mean it's just bad, Mainly what he does these days is he'll just open the front door to his house and he'll just scream across the street at me, yell, whatever, just call me names, calls me a rat because I turned him in, sort of the thing. He also, it's probably no big deal. I mean, I can put up with his calling me names and that sort of thing, but he's dangerous because he takes a lot of drugs. And at times when he's on drugs, he goes ballistic. And I've seen him literally beat the daylights out of, people. I think there's at least 3 occasions that I can think of right now where I saw him take a metal rod and start clubbing someone. And, chasing them up the street, beating them up and whatnot. And I've seen people get injured. And so, he's a dangerous man. So there's another man who lives just next door to him, very dangerous, also same thing. I've seen him take like an iron bar from a weightlifting set and just try to beat in someone's, front door, and he attacked them with it. I've seen him out there with a metal rod about yay big, about the size of a baseball bat, and I've seen him clubbing someone and chasing them up the street and that sort of thing.
Did you call and report that to the police?
I've reported some of it, not all of it. Now, someone on one of,
I would say that if you call the police and you say there is somebody physically assaulting somebody, they will be there in a heartbeat.
So what happened on one occasion with the man in Unit 8, so someone in that apartment building did call police. There were a whole bunch of people standing outside watching this going on. Someone in that apartment did call the police. I was working outside at the time. The police arrived within probably about 7 or 8 minutes. And when they saw me, they came over across the street and asked me if I had seen what went on. Of course I did, and I told them what I knew. And then after a few minutes, I went over to tell them which other people they could refer to and which other apartment units to get more information. And the police said, we're not going to do anything. I said, why? He says, well, because we talked to the person who you pointed out as being the victim, and they said they don't want to file charges, and so nothing was done.
Okay, well let's I was going to say maybe move, because I take your word for it.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation.
Okay.
I don't know if we need
So
more details. So it's like, let's talk about solutions.
Right. So what we did as a kind of a group of neighbors that live on the street. We wrote a letter to the city attorney, and we asked her to open a case to see if we can get the landlord charged with running a nuisance property. If we can do that, then there are things that the judge can do. The judge can impose restrictions or whatnot. Maybe I've even heard that quite possibly, he can have his business license revoked. Do you know anything about that? I think.
Well, yeah, I guess I was going to ask you, there was a question
So-
about the city had passed some sort of ordinance for the problem hotels, but then supposedly it didn't apply to apartments, but I mean, do you know where that actually is? Because I don't.
Mary Beth Thompson is taking care of it. She's the finance director. She said they filed nuisance lawsuits or claims or complaints, about 600 plus properties. But none of them are hotels because they don't meet the requirement that the civil penalty ordinance was supposed to do. I mean, Erin said she pushed for it. She tried really hard to get it, and the attorney said, yeah, it'll work, but the city attorney is now telling us, no, it doesn't work.
Well, if it doesn't apply to apartments.
It doesn't apply to
Or
apartments,
maybe
but
we
it
should-
applies to motels, but it doesn't work for motels either. And the city attorney actually told Erin, who asked about apartments, she was pushing it for apartments. City attorney said, no, you can't use it on apartments, you can use it on hotels. Because Erin was the prime driver for this. But it turns out we can't. So we're left with the nuisance lawsuit using state law that the chief used on, and the chief was the point on that. He used it on Gateway Inn. So we're asking, and this isn't the only community council, other community councils are also asking for help on State Street. I'm done.
No, I just want making sure they can hear.
At one point, there was some sort of, I think it was a city law about crack houses, that if the house was busted so many times for crack, that they would actually seize the house and level it. And I'm pretty sure this was the case because there was a house in Ballpark where that happened. It was literally across the street from my property. And one day the house was there, and the next day, like track hose and everything else showed up, and they freaking leveled it.
When was this?
This was probably 12, 15 years ago.
What went up in its place?
It's still an empty lot.
We live across the street, but we also live like 3 houses down from Angie. So I guess that's one of my questions is how, we've seen, there's been SWAT raids on this property 4 times in the year that we've lived there.
Right, and actually, can you identify yourself?
Oh, sorry, yeah. My name's Daphne Pringle. I live on Browning, just down the street from Andy and across the street from the Roseanne Apartments.
I'm Justin Smith, her husband.
Yeah.
He moved in last September of last year.
Yeah, and I know he's reported a burglary where he saw...
Yeah, I saw 2 guys running with tools down the alley, ran into that apartment building. I physically saw them, reported that to the officers who showed up, and they just did nothing.
Yeah. So I just don't know how there have been so many actions on the same building. It's the same apartment, somebody will get kicked out and somebody else moves in, and then 6 months later there's another police raid and that person gets kicked out. So that's my question, is how the city is clearly aware that there's activity here, but they can't do anything about it.
We even had the chief of police come on the walkthrough, Chief Brown and Aaron Mendenhall and the mayor's liaison, Nate Salazar, came on that group, and they all were interested and said they were going to help out. And we just got the dog and pony.
Your dad is such an awesome man, and I feel so badly that he would even have to worry about a threat of safety for you or for him. You know, that's just, to me, it's like property is one thing, but physical threats of harm or intimidation should not be tolerated. And I don't know if you've gone to, like Legal Aid Society does a cease and desist order, but if you've got a background check on this guy, I mean, this is really threatening and scary, I think.
Yeah,
Raw
well,
TV, 'cause it's right, it's different, because it's not, you're not living in the same household yet, you know, you're being threatened, and that's wrong.
well, yeah, it is. It's dangerous. And with respect to my father, who I'm kind of a caretaker for, he was, yeah, what, no, he's 92, but he, this was like a few weeks back, about a month ago maybe, he was home, and I was up in Ogden taking care of a cousin of mine who was dying of cancer. And when I got home, my dad told me that someone from that apartment building had come across the street. Earlier in that day, he had been fighting with someone in that building. And I guess he decided to come to our place. He spent the entire day on our front porch. And I guess he had pulled the sprinklers off of our front lawn and thrown them across the street at the person he was fighting with. And then he took a little bath or something. And then he was just spent the day fighting verbally. And so, you know, my dad was just scared out of his mind. So, yeah. You know, so anyway, I got a call from Victims Advocate when I made the complaint a couple weeks ago, and they told me that what we have to do is we have to get all this special evidence and everything. She said, you got to get it on camera, you got to film it, you know, going on, you got to do this and that. I don't have a film camera. I don't have anything that can take video. I have it doesn't record. I have a cell phone. It's just a real small flip phone. That's all I've got. I have no way of recording this. So I do have a small audio tape recorder, but unless I'm standing right next to the person, it's not going to pick it up. So, yeah, I've got some serious difficulties with collecting kind of evidence that they want.
Okay, so what you need from this community council is a letter asking the city, to the city's mayor and to the chief of police, to ask them or demand whatever you want to put in the language. Okay, say that we'd like to use all of our influence to get you to do something about this. Because Andy's already sent the letter to the city attorney, who's done nothing.
Which city attorney?
Margaret Plain.
Plain, yeah.
But a statement of affidavit that's notarized by you and your dad, that seems like that would get the ball rolling.
Nope, not at all.
Well, a suggestion would be, because I mean, you were talking about you're going to file a lawsuit that, you know, if you're familiar with the legal system, it's all about evidence. You need to get yourself a good cell phone that can take video, because this is evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fair that you should have to do that. I don't think that.
No,
because that could put him in
forget about
danger,
whether
too.
it's fair or not.
Yeah,
Like,
but it
you
might
want
put
do
him
you
in
want to
danger
solve
more.
the problem or
Because
not?
if the guy thinks that he's, because I worked in domestic violence, if the other person thinks that you're doing something that's going to cause them a problem, that might aggravate and they might lash out even more. So you've got to protect yourself as best you can without making him aware. You know what I mean?
True, but, you know, so the solution, like you're saying, is that do nothing.
No, I said legal aid, get a cease and desist, or you can.
Yeah,
write
but
cease
it all
and
comes
desist.
down, it's gonna
And then-
all get into the court, and it's gonna all be about evidence. If you don't have any evidence, nothing's gonna happen.
So
The reality of the situation.
what I'm hoping is that if the city attorney does decide to look into it, that maybe they can go through all of the police records, you know, over recent times, and even, you know, as far back as the records exist, and add that to whatever testimony that our neighbors can give, and maybe build a case based on that. I don't know.
So there's another thing,
Right now,
Let her speak right now.
let me just say,
Wait, let her.
I mean,
didn't
people-
want this to turn into chaos.
people did build cases, people did gather evidence before video cameras. What you need to do, if you haven't done it already, you need to be documenting everything. Dates, times, names, descriptions of people if you don't have the names. If you call the police and they give you a case number, you write that down, when, where, all of the details you can get. If you can't get a video recorder, use paper. Do it old school. And that is how you need to start building the case. Details first.
Yeah, one thing
So they
you
don't have to
said,
go back through because they won't be willing to go back through.
and
their
I
own
specifically
cases.
asked you this,
We
did
need it
you
together.
report that? And you said sometimes.
Yeah.
You need to report it every time.
Report it every
And you
time
can do
and
it
document that.
online now. And the excuse is, well, then the police don't show up and do anything anyway. That doesn't make any difference. Because it's not so much that you're building a case, is that you're building statistics.
How do we get the police to write a report? Because when the police come, most of the time when they do show up, there's never a report written.
Well, one thing I was going to...
Well, I've had my hand up for
Okay.
For that police reports, what I've always told people, sometimes like I had an issue with a party house over on the east side, and I had someone tell me all the time, hey, we've had this problem constantly. Well, I look up and I don't have anything in record, or officers have shown up and they might handle the situation, but they don't report it. So what I've told them is, you can tell dispatch, say, hey, look, I need to talk with an officer when this is done, and ask the officer, say, hey, look, this is an ongoing problem. I need a case number, and even if you do a paragraph report, just documenting something and keeping that for your records helps out a lot building that case. Just getting simple stuff like, I know they were talking about cameras. This is, with our technology today, it does help a lot. I mean, you can get a lot of inexpensive stuff. I mean, just my experience within the last 2 years with this camera, I was on a traffic accident, and I go up and I talk to the person, get all the information, I go back to my car, and as I'm running everything, I turned it off. I forgot to turn it back on, and I go up and the suspect made statements. I put him in the car. It was a DUI traffic accident. Well, I put in my report, so-and-so said this. Because it wasn't on camera, the prosecutor didn't want to put me on the stand. For some reason, I've been able to testify for 10 years, but because it wasn't on camera, she didn't want to put me on the stand, but was willing to put some person on the street willing to testify to the exact same thing I put in my report. Just because it wasn't on camera, they didn't want to put me on the stand. So cameras, it's the technology, it's the world we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Getting that just to document, and I'm sorry, you will have officers that are jerks. I mean, but I usually tell people, I'm like, I would rather come out and not have an issue than not come out and have a big issue. It's my job to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So you call them, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I tell people, call us because that's what we're here for, but you need to be calling on every single time and requesting the dispatch, say, hey, I need an officer to call me, and when the officer calls, say, hey, I need a case number and I need a report, just a paragraph.
Okay.
And if he doesn't, if he gives you gruff, call me and I'll talk to him and get something written up.
Great. Okay, we'll do that.
So Andy, I think that's really awesome advice, and that's actually what I think every time you have all of this is really good advice, to record it, to write it down, to call the police, and the police can also, I've had a situation where I had to call the police, they actually called the person and told them not to bother me. And then when the person bothered me again, they had it in the report, and I asked for a case number. Every time I asked for a case number. And now that everybody knows, I totally will watch out for you and your dad as best I can. But I wanted you to know, when you brought up the ladder, I don't know if you know, down the street, just a block down from where your house is, our neighbor was, her house was broken into. Do you guys know this? And they used a ladder, and they broke in her window. You know our neighbor off the alley? Yeah. So we need to, I didn't realize you were having so many problems over there, so we need to look out more for you guys. But I think that working with the police, I think, is top priority, really.
I was just wondering about grammar request, how many times the law has been called over there, that kind of documents that is sort of a nuisance property right there.
Last week at our board meeting, we talked about this in preparation for this meeting. And I just pulled up the statistics for like the past 6 months on CompStat, and I mean, I can't believe there's not more going on with all the statistics that are out there already. I mean, you've got the heroin, you've got meth, you've got elderly abuse, you've got larceny, you've got everything you could think of.
At that location, at that address.
There's dots all over around, and then it shows the part of the crime and the type of the crime.
So it is also such a major problem. It seems like a letter is the next course of action. It seems like it's a very minimal thing that we can do. But also at some point, you find ways to escalate it into the media. Like if it's really horrible, if there's all those numbers, media loves numbers. I think eventually if the city doesn't respond in an appropriate manner, which seems like they are not, then there is finding ways to escalate it into more attention.
I tried that with Georgia Apartments last year because they had insanity numbers going on, and I got 0 response from the media. And I've done it I cycled through 4 times, pulled all the stats, wrote it up from kind of a middling stance so it didn't sound like I was extreme one way or the other, just asking for some help, and they were just like, no. And that's kind of a concern because I think there's some people that aren't
Tim
interested
has some
in
news on
exposing
that.
this.
Tim has some news on the Georgia apartments.
And that's why this is important, because what
Yeah, we
happens
do know
here
that
can
this
help us
happens
at
in the
other
city, but
places
the news.
in the
They knew
neighborhood,
that this was
community.
It's not one size fits all. We use a different strategy depending on the situation.
Would someone from your office be able to just talk to the city attorney and see if she'll, look into this case? We sent her a letter. She could just see if you could apply some kind of pressure to get her to at least pull up some records from that apartment and then contact us and let us know what she thinks in terms of putting a case together.
I think it's already been sent to her attention. I think she's already aware of it. If she's already aware of it coming from the community council, then was it?
I don't think our community council has
What I'm
contacted.
going to do is we're actually over time and we have to start wrapping this up. But what I was going to say is that, like I said earlier, I think one of the roles of community council is to amplify the concerns of the neighborhood. And I don't see any problem with the community council drafting a letter, although I would actually like to put it out there to the board. I don't have the authority to unilaterally send a letter. So I think what we'll do is we'll send an email out to the entire board, brief synopsis of the situation, get authority to write a letter, and we'll write a letter. And try to draw some attention and we'll probably copy. I was going to say this is probably a baptism by fire for you. At Liberty Wells.
This has been more of a recent item or issue that's been brought to our attention. I mean, just recently. So if it's not an open case for our community action team, it's not that we're not doing anything about it. It's like Detective King or George identified the Georgia apartments. There's civil violations going on over there. So our civil enforcement is constantly going over there. They're working on it week by week. There's a process to it. We have to identify the issue. They get so long to clean it up. If they don't clean it up, then they're under fines. They're under penalties. Same thing with the county health department. If there's code violations, which there are, the county health department is over there. And then they're identified and they have a certain amount of time to clean those code violations up or they're fined. They're under penalty. So it's not like we don't know that's going on over at Georgia Apartments. But if it's not up here at this level with civil enforcement, you mentioned adult protective services, if somebody's getting abused, it's not on their radar screen.
Well, the CAT teams, it's supposed to coordinate all that, right?
Right, but I don't have an open case on the Roseanne.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is we'll copy you.
Yeah.
We'll copy Detective King. Is that right? I'm not used to your name yet. And the city attorney, maybe somebody can send me the specific, Andy, can you send me the name of the city attorney?
Yes.
And we'll copy her and see what we can do. Because I know civil enforcement, like over in Ballpark, there's a guy that owns 3 houses, are all abandoned. He has tens of thousands of dollars in fines, and it has absolutely no effect. So there's certain things that like county health can do. Like if the water gets turned off to a house, they're there instantly. I mean, not instantly, but they're there within a couple of days because a house cannot be habitable without water. Okay, but civil enforcement, because the weeds are in your lawn and you're not maintaining it, that can go on for years and years and thousands of dollars in fines, and it won't do anything. So civil enforcement, in my opinion, is like useless. But
How did Georgia Apartments get their vouchers pulled? I thought the CAT team had something to do with it.
So there were a number of code violations. There was a long period of time that they were given to take care of those code violations. They defaulted. They lost their good they lost their good landlord-tenant program with the city. So there's a good landlord-tenant program that if you're a partner, a relationship with the landlord and the tenant, that you're going to keep your place clean, you're going to maintain it, good, healthy standards, then you get a discount on the fees. If you don't, the difference is $320 versus $20 per unit. So,
Which for band landlord is nothing.
so the Georgia,
Nothing.
so the
we
Georgia
tried,
apartments had
I'm sorry, is this gonna stay on that good landlord program? When we tried that, or, we tried to apply that to this case, and we were told that they get something like 6 or 7 chances, and that they have to make all these large number of violations within a very short period.
Well, the problem with the good landlord program is in reality it's kind of an educational program for landlords because there's a lot of clueless landlords, and then it's also sort of incentivizing cooperation. If you don't want to cooperate, like, it doesn't do any good. Okay, last comment, and we're going to have to.
So with this, I have called and talked with the Good Landlord program about this property. And one of the things about it is that when there is an issue and officers come out, if they are able to identify a specific person, it's not just because one unit is causing an issue, they don't apply that to the entire place. It's that specific unit. So, yeah, they'll work with the landowner trying to get them in compliance, but it's one of those case-by-case basis where this one's causing a problem, they might get this one solved in this apartment complex, then this unit starts causing a problem, and so it kind of starts that over, and so it's one of those ones where they have to figure that out and try to balance it.
It's a difficult problem, but I'll conclude by saying we'll see what we can do to help move the situation to some sort of acceptable resolution. And with that, I was going to ask for do I have a second? Second, all in favor? Okay. We'd also, if people can help put away chairs and stuff, that would be very helpful.